So it's a foggy Tuesday morning. I'm on my way to work right now, paying really close attention to the traffic. But since this is not unlike doing a hands-free call, I thought I'd go ahead and do the Monday night Metalface that I didn't do last night. So day late and $1 short, sorry. Anyway, last week I started off this whole thing by talking about why I like heavy metal, the subversive nature of it. Now, I'm talking about what started it all. So the reason why I didn't do it last night is I got home from watching the new Peter Jackson movie, They Shall Not Grow Old. If you haven't seen it yet, you need to see it. Highly recommended. Anyway, I got home a little bit late from that. Had to get ready, things ready for today. Chatted with my wife a little bit. And then I sat down and was going to try to find some entertainment. Movies just weren't doing it. So I whipped over to YouTube, and whenever I go over to YouTube, I always get into a rabbit hole. I started watching these reaction videos from these two guys, Preston, who does KTF, and Shaq, who does No Life Shaq, and they're pretty cool. They do some fairly interesting reaction videos to music that is unexpected for them. They're country music, heavy metal. You know, they'll do the hip-hop and R&B and rap. But what I like is that it's a fresh perspective on the music that I already listen to. And sometimes it makes me want to go listen to the music that I haven't listened to in decades. So how did it all start? Well, it started in 1981. I was homesick from school, and, you know, I can't remember what grade I was in, but it was 1981. And I had heard about this new TV channel. Some of you already know that channel was called MTV. Started on the 1st of August of 1981. And I was homesick. I like music. I listened to the radio, but I didn't have any specific bands or anything that I liked. So I switched over to this channel and started watching videos. I watched videos all day long. I saw everything from the producers, the Tubes, the Spoons. I saw all the original MTV VJs, whoever was working that day. But it was one band. It was after lunch. It had to have been after lunch. It was later in the day. I saw one band that popped up. Iron Maiden. They came up and they were doing the song Wrathchild off their second album, Killers. And it was on a tour that they had done before the album was released. And if I'm not mistaken, before the album was recorded, because the version of Killers that's on that video, that live video, is different than the one that actually makes it to the album. So it's either they recorded a different version and decided to give that one a try, or they hadn't recorded the album yet. Anyway, it was from a 1981 concert at the Rainbow, which is the same year that I saw it. So it's pretty interesting how ahead of themselves MTV was at the time, and they were only a few months in to their reign before they turned into shit. Anyway, last night I was dipping around trying to find something interesting to watch after I watched a couple reaction videos. Saw a couple of bands. I listened to the new Candlemass song. You know, I went digging for some new Misery Index. And then I was like, you know what I haven't listened to in a while, and I'm going to be talking about them? Iron Maiden. So I typed in Iron Maiden and on YouTube, and there was a history of video. I thought that the history of video had the concert in it, but it didn't. So, and if it did, it was later on, and I didn't want to sit and watch for an hour and a half. So I wanted to watch the 1981 Rainbow concert, Iron Maiden live at the Rainbow. And so I found that, and I watched it. And all I can say is that band, in their prime and even today, that band has always been on fire. On fire. And they were definitely on fire. Even Paul Di'Anno, this was before, I'm guessing before he became a raging alcoholic. I mean, he may have already had an alcohol problem, but he became a raging alcoholic later. But anyway, it was Iron Maiden that kicked this ball down the hill. And in the beginning, That's all I wanted to listen to was Iron Maiden, because it was the first. Then I started listening to the radio a little bit more. 99.5 KISS in San Antonio. My dad was stationed here in San Antonio at the time. And 99.5 KISS in San Antonio played a lot of heavy metal and hard rock. And it was before Clear Channel, so there was a little bit more mix versus hearing the same stuff all over and over again. And I remember when Ozzy came to town, and it was his first world tour after leaving Black Sabbath. And 99.5 used to do this thing every Saturday night where they would play half of an album that has come out. And mind you, these were vinyl albums. So they would play one side of a vinyl album. And that's how I heard Number of the Beast by Iron Maiden. That was when I heard the transition for the first time from Paul Di'Anno to Bruce Dickinson. And so I was really heavily invested in Iron Maiden. Imagery, songs, I think imagery more in the beginning, because once I listened to a few other songs, I wasn't as impressed, because Wrathchild was the first one out the gate, and Wrathchild's an amazing song. Later on, I developed, a lot more interest in the rest of the music. It was just, in the beginning when you're new and you don't understand what's going on, you kind of gravitate towards a certain aspect. And for me, it was imagery. And and then I got that first album on vinyl with my own money. I bought it at the Base Exchange at Randolph Air Force Base for like $7. And wore that thing out. Well, I didn't wear it out. I listened to it a lot. Matter of fact, that's how I learned how to play guitar. I started learning to Ides of March, the opening instrumental, and then worked to learn Wrathchild, and then went back and listened to their first album and learned Running Free, and worked really, really hard to learn the opening riff for Phantom of the Opera. So Iron Maiden was really the beginning of all of it. The beginning of all of it. And then after that, wow, you know how it is. It's like getting a tattoo. Once you get one, you just can't stop at one. So after that, it was starting to get into some of the other new wave of British heavy metal bands. Judas Priest, even though they weren't really part of that new wave, they had already been around for a while. They were still considered that at the time. I listened to a little bit of Saxon, didn't like them as much because there was an edge missing to it. I wasn't certain, and still to this day, I don't know why. Then Accept, their first album came out, and then their second album came out rapidly after that. It was Fast as a Shark, Restless and Wild, and then Balls to the Wall. And then I started finding bands like Slayer and King Diamond and Merciful Fate. Actually, it was Merciful Fate first, and then I found King Diamond. And it just went from there. When we moved to North Dakota, I hooked in with a few, metal fans. I had one friend who said he didn't listen to anything that didn't have Satan in it, and I think he was just kind of being a jackass because it was funny. And then it was Metallica. And Metallica, Master of Puppets came out. Actually, I really, really enjoyed listening to Ride the Lightning. I would lay in my bed with the headphones on with the curly Q cable, and I would listen to Call of Cthulhu over and over again. That heavy bottom end riff, just, man, it killed it. The atmosphere of that song, and Fight Fire with Fire, and everything on that album, everything. And then when Master of Puppets came out, I just remember driving down the road with a buddy of mine and stopping and seeing another buddy of mine on the side of the road and talking to him, and he asked if I'd heard the new Metallica album. I said no, and he handed it to me in a cassette tape that he pulled out of a bag and said, and I quote, "You got to listen to this. It'll change your life." Well, I don't know if it was that changed my life, but it just went from there. So next week, I'm going to talk a little bit about what happened when I went overseas, because things changed quite a bit when I went overseas. I was listening to metal when I first joined the military. I didn't listen to as much music because I was getting married and Nobody in the household liked the music that I listened to, and at the time I thought, you know, that was a norm. And then also too, we didn't have transportable devices like the iPod and things that we have nowadays, so it was a little bit more difficult. And this was before the advent of CDs. So anyway, next week we'll talk about the transition when I went overseas and how things changed and what I saw. So thanks for listening. This is Metalface Monday, day late and a dollar short. But next week, I promise it'll be on Monday. Metalface.